So what I'll do is record this first portion. I don't want to record the second half because I do want to leave that up to Coffee and Conversations. We try not to actually record Coffee and Conversations so people feel like they can kind of share what they want to share. But like I said, this first portion is kind of a mixture of lunch and learn and Coffee and Conversations for us. We're happy to provide this. And we will record this first portion for the rest of our members if they want it. One, if you know me, and I think I know almost everybody on this call, I think everybody, you know that strategic planning, strategic visioning in general, and thinking about the future is very, very exciting for me. It's my pastime hobby. Most people do other hobbies, I guess, looking at cars and fixing up houses and things. My pastime hobby is working with other organizations in my side hustle to help with things like strategic planning and culture adaptations and things like that for organizations. So I love this topic. I think Eric and I were looking for something to do in October. Obviously, we're all coming out of 2020, COVID, and then what does 2021 look like? And you can see that we bounced around with our program a little bit just to test it out. But one of the things I did offer to Erica was, why don't I do something around strategic planning? Fall and Q4, kind of this October, November, December time period is a great time to pause and to reflect on the past year and think about, do I need a new operational plan for next year? Which some of us are working just in that kind of space, or even the next 6 weeks or 6 months. Or do I need kind of a 3 to 5 year plan? What do I want to be really down the road? And so we wanted to provide this for you. And fall is a great time to do that. So with that, what do I actually mean by strategic planning? I think we've probably thrown that word around a lot. We need to be strategic about things. We need to have a strategy about things. But what do we actually mean when we say strategic plan? There's actually kind of 3 levels of planning, and I want to introduce you to them if you haven't seen them yet. And so when we look at planning, and this is for small businesses, big organizations, nonprofits, you name it, there really are 3 different ways to look at your business model and your organizational model. And one is kind of the 1,000-foot view. You've probably heard that before, the 10,000-foot view and the 100,000-foot view. When we look at 1,000-foot view, and we do this often with our members, we're talking about tactical, day-to-day, ground floor, what's your immediate to-do list. I often like to think of it as like, how many ice cream scoops do we need to serve to pay the bills this month? How many hot dogs do we need to grill? How many bras do we need to sell in order to, pay the staff, keep the lights on? That kind of tactical, day-to-day firefighting is what we call it. Or you've heard people probably say in the weeds, you're really in the weeds. Well, as business owners, it's good to be in the weeds. We're the weed whackers. So we've got to kind of, whack away at them every single day. Then we move up a level, and some of you might be at that point, especially kind of getting to the end of the year. The holidays really mean for you time to start to think about next year. And so that's where we look at operational. We have an operational plan. We set measurable goals. We come out of the next year. We do a forecast. This is often where maybe your profit and loss statements, your balance statement, you want to look at all of those. You want to meet with your accountant. You want to pay your taxes. Some of you hate to pay your taxes. I love paying my taxes, or at least going through the process, because it lets me know where I'm at. But that's your 10,000-foot view. Oftentimes, small businesses especially, but even organizations get stuck in these 2 things. And you're going to find that you're going to want to get back throughout this process. You're going to want to get back into the 1,000-foot, 10,000-foot, because it's comfortable. It's fighting the fires. It's weed whacking. That's what we do. That's what I'm good at. And what I'm going to continue to encourage you, and I want you to think over the fall and winter is, how do I keep going to a 100,000-foot view? What does a 100,000-foot view look like for my business? And so when we look at a 100,000-foot view, we're really talking strategic level, and that's looking beyond your horizon. You may not even be able to see some of the things that are coming down your way. Forecasting the future, how best we can, and I want to give you some tools today to help you forecast the future. And then determining what you need at that kind of 3 to 5 year timeline. And that's about as much as you can go with strategic planning. There are some 10-year strategic plans. If you look at the Vermont Futures Project, that tends to be a 10-year plan, which is fine. I think it might even be a 30-year plan to get us to 2050. But more or less, you're looking at 3 to 5 years down the road. And think about that. What does that look like? I want you to picture yourself in your organization. I want you to picture yourself getting into a hot air balloon. All right, so everybody's open the gate, got on it, hit the gas. It's gone up in the air. It's gone up 1,000 foot. It's gone up 10,000 foot. Ooh, you can look at next year. What does 2022 look like for you? Oh, let's go up a little bit higher. And then I want you to float over, and I want you to look down at BCRC at La Pêche in 5 years. Can you imagine what that looks like? And I want you to go through that exercise. What you will find, and I'm gonna kind of do the punchline now, but this is a mixture of art and math, as I like to say. It is a picture of something that you have to create and think about and dream about and write down and journal and go on a process. Go out to the beach for a weekend and really think about it. And I know there are some members I can think of off the top of my head that actually do this, that kind of go on their retreat and plan for the next 5 years. But it also takes some math, some process to do this. So I want to talk a little bit about that. So at this point, you might say to Matt and Erica, why the heck would I do a strategic plan in the midst of a pandemic, global supply chain shortage, an election year coming up, mid-elections? I mean, Matt, it is crazy. It is chaos. There's so much dysfunction. I can't possibly plan for 3 to 5 years down the road. And there's often people that say, strategic planning is dead, that we're just so advanced in our ability to pivot. We've heard that, or be agile, that we just can't even have a plan. We just need to pivot, and agile, and just get good with change. And those are all right things, but I think we're probably talking more about tactical stuff, maybe operational pivot. But when we look at strategic planning, there are actually pillars that hold up your business. And those rarely change. And let me just list a couple, and you can probably even add to this, but you still always need customers or members or somebody that you're serving. You always need some sort of finances. So you got to have a financial plan of some sort. You need product or services that you're offering. Now those can change, but you will always need product and services. You may have innovation that, kind of that horizontal function. I always need to be innovating. That is a pillar of your business. So yes, there are tactical things that we change and we pivot and whatever, but we also know that there are some tried and true things that make a chamber work, that make a small business work, that make a nonprofit work. That's where we want to be putting our lens and looking through strategic planning through those lenses. So don't worry about if it's hot dogs or sausages, which are your products. Be worrying about, what do I have to sell? How do I sell it? So on and so forth. So, or as I like to think also, strategic planning is kind of this statement from Abe Lincoln, which is, if I had 8 hours to chop down a tree, I would spend 6 hours sharpening my axe, which means it is probably warranted and it's probably good advice and wise to do some planning. That we cannot be, and you may even feel this sometimes, where I feel it's not sustainable. I can do it. I can be, shooting from the hip for 2 or 3 years in my small business, but that's not sustainable. And I don't want to live that way forever. So I think, good old Abe is telling us, pause. You are allowed to pause. You're allowed to go away on a retreat. You're allowed to take a weekend. You're allowed to take Q4 of your year and think about, hey, if I had 8 hours, I would spend a majority of them planning, because the execution, it doesn't matter as much as the plan does. That makes sense to people. Or put another way, I like this quote. In this world, you're either growing or you're dying, so get in motion and grow. Which is a little bit kind of the small business axiom, which is, being stagnant is not helpful, and it will not be sustainable, and it will not cause you to survive. Now, sometimes in Vermont, we tend to have a little bit of a pocket of remaining static and stagnant. and we kind of survive that more often than other people. You know, technology takes a little bit longer to get all this way up to Vermont, which is totally fine. And so, but eventually Walmart comes, right? Eventually Amazon happens. Eventually people have choices, customers have choices, members have choices, the public has choices, and they're going to choose where to put their money. And so it's always important to kind of be growing. And I'll just tell the participants, we will have this slide deck, and I'll send it up to you guys afterwards. So don't feel like you have to jot everything down, but if you want to make some notes around things. So that's strategic planning. That's kind of the purpose of why. But I've been doing this for probably a decade now, working with organizations, not just in the chamber, but kind of all over with their strategic plan. And here's what I found. When we think about why strategic plans actually fail, or I'll even make it more basic, why our plans fail, why resolutions at the beginning of the year fail, why, you know, even our initiatives or projects, but I want you to think 3 to 5 years, why sometimes we write a great nonprofit strategic plan and we don't succeed at it. You know, that happens. Here's what I found. Here's my hypothesis. It's in a batch of 3, okay? And you let me know if this jives with you. 1, we haven't created enough dissatisfaction with where we are. So part of the science behind change, part of the chemical things that happen for you to change is you have to feel pain, right? We don't change because we like to change. We really don't. We change because it's uncomfortable. It's uncomfortable with our weight. It's uncomfortable with our relationships. It's uncomfortable in our small business, kind of where we are. And so we have to create enough dissatisfaction within ourselves and then perhaps within our customers, our members, who we serve, with where we are. And oftentimes plans don't do that enough. Second is, I think we lack a clear and compelling vision of where we are going. Okay, Matt, you want me to not do this anymore, but where are we going if we don't do that? You need to have a real clear and compelling vision of where you're going to go if you're not going to stay where you are. And then finally, we lack leadership and people to support us and to support the change. And so think about that. You could be a sole proprietor. You're still, you know, you need leadership. You need you. You may need your family to back you. You may need friends to back you. You may need the bank to back you. We lack that support system. In a bigger organization, leadership goes top down, and we lack the people that have actually bought into the plan. Okay. And let me just kind of paint the picture for you. If you think about what we did at the chamber, and I'll just use us because I can pick on ourselves and not any of you. If you were all around during 2016, 2017, we were going through a transformation because the Manchester Chamber closed and we didn't know kind of what to do. We didn't know how to serve and what we were supposed to do in the future. Obviously, that opened up an opportunity for us to be more regional. There had been discussions about regionalism, but did we want to do it? And so we went through 4 strategic plans, believe it or not, or 4 strategic retreats, I should say, in the months of fall, spring, fall again, and spring, to lead us to our 2017 to 2020 vision. And all the time, and if you think about it, and I just want to use us kind of as a guinea pig, all the time, how much were we communicating with the public, with our members, about our dissatisfaction with where we were currently as a chamber, as a local chamber? How were we creating a clear and compelling vision of where we could be, stronger together? I often use the example of, I wrote a column, I think in 2017 or whatever, when we were starting to make this transformation, every week for 52 weeks. So there I was laying in the foundation of a clear and compelling vision. Man, that sounds good. Then we had to get, you know, our board on board, and we had to get the leadership on board. We had to get our stakeholders. You know, some people, they belong to the chamber as a member, but there are stakeholders in our region, our senators, our representatives, our town people, our BCRCs, our lightning jars. We had to get them on board and really start to chalk it up and talk to them. And so we started to do that. And I'll hold off on the punchline because I want to come back to this story when we get a little bit more into the meat of strategic planning. But hold on to that story. I wanted to, kind of create that. Wow, okay, that you really did it. Erica, Michaela, Matt, they really were working this algorithm. So when I was going to do this, I mean, strategic planning can take 6 months. It can take 6 weeks. It can take years. As I said, we went through 4 retreats. I'm not encouraging you to do that unless you have a larger organization. You got to get more people on. So I was trying to think, okay, how do I just break this down for small businesses, nonprofits in this 30-minute crunch to just say, hey, if you walk away with nothing else, here's kind of things to think about when you leave and 3 phases you might want to think of. I could do that in Q4 of this year and start to go down this road and path. So here's how I want to break down the 3 phases of strategic planning. 1, I want you to get curious about your business. That is, like, if I were to get hired and I were to go into a business and they said, we want a strategic plan, the first thing we always do is get curious about our business. And we don't just kind of sit there in kumbaya and sit out and look at the forest and the lake and kind of think about curiosity in our business and isn't it cool? We actually go to work. We do surveys. We do SWOT analysis, or strength, weakness, opportunity, and threat analysis. We do a stakeholder roundtables. We do competitive analysis. We might do secret shopping. I mean, this is just kind of a mild list of the things you could do to get curious about your business, to get feedback is what you're looking for. Your business scenarios where you might say, if we did A, it would look like this. If we did B, it would look like this. And if it did C, it would look like this. Sometimes writing those down help the worry warts, me included, go, okay, you have options. You've written the most worst case scenario down, and Erica knows this because we've done a worst case scenario budget, a mid-level budget, an awesome budget, and what would all 3 look like? And once we kind of put those down on paper, we go, okay, well, we know what would happen if the worst case scenario happened. So first step is getting curious, and we'll dive into each one of these before we open it up. Phase 2 is starting a search for the why, who, and where, or why, where, and who. Doesn't really matter what order you put them in. But I always like to think of these as your mission or purpose, vision, and values. Your mission being who you are, what you do, how you do it, why you do it, and for whom do you do it for. Your vision being, this is where we want to go. And our values actually being the heartbeat of our organization. We actually put, oftentimes I'm working with teams because values they haven't discussed, values they haven't named, values they put off in the corner, but values are extremely powerful. They are the lifeblood of your organization. And defining them helps you define the rest of how your organization is going to behave, basically. And again, we'll get into each one of these phases real quick. Finally, creating that compelling vision and strategy. And this is kind of where the grunt work comes in. I guess the grunt work is a little bit more up in getting curious because you want to do all the surveys or whatever, but you actually start to take that. You start to say, hey, how do we measure our mission? Do we feel still good about our mission, our vision? Do we need to start to define that? What are our values? Okay, now we're ready to get to work. And that looks like building your strategic pillars. And I'll talk a little bit about that. I mentioned them already. Building SMART goals, specific, measurable, attainable, results-oriented, time-bound initiatives, and then some work breakdown plans, which you want to give to your staff. Okay, here are our initiatives. We've got a new line, got a new campaign for bras in the spring. Here's our work breakdown plan on how to get that out. What I want you to see here, again, I'll go back to the heart and brain, or art and math, or left or right, whatever you want to call it. I am such a firm believer in, if you just did process and math on strategic plan and didn't inspire and aspire in your strategic plan, it wouldn't work. If you just did dreaming and inspiration and aspiration, but didn't put any process to it, didn't put any rigor into it, you just kind of were out there, it wouldn't work. That really, in my mind, strategic planning is a unique balance of art and math, creativity and innovation, and the process and the will to get it done. And so it's about balancing those 2 things. Let's look at each one of these individually. So when we look at phase 1 and getting curious, just a couple key terms to think about, and key, I guess, tasks or even buckets to put them in. One is finding your dissatisfaction with status quo. And that, I mean, in your business, don't strategic plan just a strategic plan to change. And so in order to change, as we mentioned before, you have to create dissatisfaction with where you are. And you don't have to be mean about it. You have started your business, you're in year 3, you're in year 5, you've done terrific work. But Matt, I don't want to end here. You know, I got to keep growing. So I'm dissatisfied now about where we are because I have to be satisfied about where we're going. And so status quo, remember, is mid-level. It's not below. You're not saying that you did bad. It's just saying, look, I don't want to stay where I am forever, that there are great things I can accomplish. And so you have to build that dissatisfaction with status quo. One of the ways to do that is creating a case for change. And this can be a 1-page, this can be a white paper, this can be a video to yourself, it can be a video to your stakeholders. But you'll start to build, why do we need to change? Why can't we stay where we are? And if you email me after, I do have questions for the case for change. So if you say, hey, what are the 5 to 10 questions I need to ask myself? One of them being, what if we didn't change? What would that look like? What would happen if we did change? What are the pains of changing? What are the pains if we stuck here? So you'd walk yourself through those questions and say, that's my case for change. I'll go back to my 52 articles that I wrote in the Banner in 2017. Those were our case for change. I think literally one of the articles was called Case for Change. And I answered every question in the article just so that I, A, could get it done and I could get it off my chest, and obviously the board and the staff looked at it, but B, so that the public could say, wow, they have really thought about this name change. They have really thought about this regional approach. Gathering feedback, again, surveying, asking, researching, looking at your competition. And I put at the Verge, there's a futurist called Joel Barker, and he talks about innovation at the Verge. That innovation actually happens when we go to the outer rim of our comfortability, right? So, you know, as long as we do, you know, rescue squad stuff, and it is just our core function, that's just what we do, we're going to be comfortable. We won't need a strategic plan. We won't really change a whole lot. But what if we went to the outer rim of that? What else do? We transport people. Wow. What else could we do? What is Bennington in need of in terms of transportation? Well, now we could really start to go to the verge of that bubble for us. And innovation actually happens at the Verge, where you can actually meet two things that don't actually act in the same industry. Now, I'm not telling you to go be a taxi service, but you could say, look, we have a fleet of transportation vehicles. We are about getting people from A to B. That opens the door to a lot of things that we could partner with. Does the school needs more transportation? Does the hospital need more transportation? What else could we do? And I know, Art, you've gone through some of that exercise. I know, Forrest, before you did some of that exercise work too. So that's what I mean by innovation at the Verge. So look that up. It's a good 1990s thing, but he's a futurist, so he's kind of talking about today too. And then feedback, and I want to pause here for just a brief moment on feedback. So you're collecting all this data, and I'll talk about Garlic Town. So we just put out, we got 500 responses from our Garlic Town from customers. We got, I think, 15 responses from businesses. I think we got 100 responses from vendors. They were all different surveys. Can you imagine the feedback that we got? Good, bad, ugly, all types of feedback. And some of them are warranted, and some of them are bad and warranted. Some of them are good and warranted. Some of them are bad and not warranted. What I want you to think about feedback is, one, it's a gift. Really start to change your belief system, your mindset on feedback is a gift, because otherwise they could just talk behind your back. Otherwise, they could just go to another Garlic Town, Garlic Fest, somewhere else. Otherwise, they could just go to another place, never talk to you. And we all hate when people talk behind our backs. Did you go to that festival? Oh, ugh. Giving them an outlet is a good positive for them to kind of give off some of their steam, but B, it's a gift for us. Feedback is a gift, and that may be hard, and you can take this even personal. Feedback from my wife is a gift. She did not have to tell me about that. She could keep that in for 20 years, and it could erupt when we're 50. I need to see feedback as a gift. 2, you can't shoot the messenger, because it's probably, there's a kernel of truth that really the messenger is just bringing it to you. At that moment, you may hate the messenger, but really it's something else that's going on. Feedback on Garlic Town is something we knew, something we didn't know, but it wasn't really the individual, you know, they weren't bringing this problem to us. It's our problem to own. And here's the most important part about feedback. This is the part that most people do like, because I just said two things that are really hard. You get to decide what you want to do with the feedback. And that's actually one of the hardest things to do. And I'm continuing to talk to my staff about it. I'm continuing to talk to myself about it. But you get to decide if the feedback is warranted or not. So we've got 500 surveys. We got 100. Okay, what is the general message that's happening? What do we want to believe? And what don't we want to believe? And what do we want to change in next year's Garlic Town? And what don't we want to change in next year's Garlic Town? We get to decide. It's us at the end of the day. So you do not have to take everything at face value. You do not have to take every ding, is basically what I'm saying. So yes, it's a gift. Don't shoot the messenger, but all the feedback that you get, it may be just stupid stuff that you go, look, they don't know enough about my business. They don't know enough about the bras that I purchased and where I get them from. They don't know what they're talking about. And I know that, right? I've done enough of my other roundtables, other surveys, feedback from other customers, testing, competitive analysis. So when you start to get all this data, let the data win the day, not the opinion, okay? So that's phase one. So again, you're curious. So you want to create a dissatisfaction with status quo. You want to do, create a case for change for why I might want to change, and move into the future in 5 years. We're gathering a lot of feedback during this time. This could take a year, guys. It could take 6 weeks. It's up to you, but be prepared that if I really want to go through the rigor, I could take a year on this stuff. Part two is being in search of the why, where, and who. So let me walk you through this. Mission, it's not just about what we do and how do we do it, but why do we do it? There's a great, many of you probably seen it, great TED Talk with Simon Sinek, also a book, Start With Why, but just type in Simon Sinek, why, TED, it's a great 18-minute thing, and he'll talk to you about great companies like Apple and Amazon and other ones that have defined their why as opposed to what they do. Everybody makes computers. Apple makes you think differently. Ooh, that gives you a little bit of chills. That's nice. Okay, so what is think differently? All of a sudden it's expanded the box. We don't just do computers now. We do listening devices. We start our own music store. We have a cell phone. Oh, that's not a computer, it's a cell phone. So really starting to define why do we do what we do, along with what we do and how we do. What you do and how you do, you already know. But work on that if you haven't had a mission yet. Vision is, where are we going, right? As I've said before, but this may help you. Think of the 5 Ps here: purpose, picture, plan, performance, and partner. Let me walk you through that. So if you got into an elevator, you'd want to be able to give your business pitch in a minute, right? And you've often heard that, right? If you've gone through any business exercise, like, man, I do not want to get in an elevator. I don't even know where I would start. Well, here's a great way. This is 5 Ps. It's an easy way when you get forced into ice breaking about what your business is. Purpose. Here's why we're doing what we're doing. Here's what it's going to look like. Here's the plan we're going to start to put in place. Here's how we're going to kind of measure it and look at the performance of it. And the most important, here's the part I need you to play. So if I got in an elevator with somebody and they're like, what does the chamber do? Where are you guys going? I go, the purpose of the chamber, in my mind, is about connecting people to people, big picture, and businesses. Our purpose is to connect the region together and to provide that kind of horizontal function. Every other business is working in their vertical. We want them to be successful, but nobody's connecting them with each other. Our job is to connect them with each other. Picture. It's kind of like, what do we want to say? It's kind of like a soup, and we're the broth. You've got carrots, you've got celery, you've got ham, you've got corn. They're all different businesses. We're the broth that brings them all together, makes them taste delicious. My plan is, well, let me roll out our 1-page strategy for you. Our plan is to do 1, 2, 3. How we're going to measure this is we're going to look at both our budget, our members, our retention rate. We're going to do feedback surveys. We do the state of the commerce survey. We do state of the chamber surveys. Oh, great. Now, most important, here's the part I need you to play. I need you to pay your membership dues. I need you to sponsor the Garlic Town. I need you to help us with a lunch and learn. Help us put on a mixer. Okay, so see how that vision can kind of just flow from you when you think about the 5 Ps. And then values. And again, guys, this is a real crash course. You could spend days, months on vision, and you should. You could spend months on values. The values reflect our beliefs, especially about our relationships with our employees, if we have any, our customers, and our organizational culture. Oftentimes we say values are the heartbeat of the organization, and it's how you decide. And I'll be kind of more blunt here. You can hire people based on your values. You can fire people based on your values. Look, you're just not a good fit. Yeah, no, our value is accountability. And you've shown up late 5 times, and unfortunately, that's just not in our value set. If you can suggest a way that you might, help to remedy that, we'd love to have you. But this just isn't a good organizational fit or a good business fit, and that's just because of our values around accountability and teamwork. You're leaving the team down. Wow, what a unique way to use our values in real day-to-day time. So our values help us make good decisions. If you think of the Tylenol scare in the 1980s, Johnson & Johnson pulled, when people were putting poison in some of the containers of Tylenol, they pulled off all the Tylenol. They lost like $10 million in 1980 because they threw out all of the aspirin, all the Tylenol, right? And they go back to it, and it's called Johnson & Johnson's credo. And they say, look, our credo is the customers first. And when that poison put our customers in danger, we had a value-based decision. We didn't have a tactical decision. We didn't have an operational decision. We didn't have a finance decision. We had a person, we had people, we had customers. We had a heart decision to make, and we pulled it. Now, what's beautiful about that story is because of that, Johnson & Johnson created the aluminum foil that goes on all our medicine bottles now. That's what they invented. And they actually, because of that, all their customers responded. I mean, how many of us love J&J right now? Not just because of the shot, but because they're just a good family business. And they kind of compounded on their brand because they made that heartfelt decision, and we're better for it. Innovative, created new things. Everybody had to buy their foil. They made millions back based on trust. So think about that when you're making value-based decisions. And then finally, kind of the creating a compelling vision and strategy. So when you kind of have defined your mission, vision, values, I want you to think about that, okay? Up top, those are kind of what drive you. Who we are, what we do, why do we do it, how do we do it, for whom do we do it for, our mission. Where are we going? Our vision, our values, how we make our decisions. Then we have to actually start to get into 5 years down the road, what are our strategic pillars? And remember, some of those are what I talked about. Those are customers, those are relevancy, those could be finances, those could be marketing and communication. There are the kind of the pillars that make up your business. You wouldn't be able to do your business without them. And so what pillars of focus do we need to achieve our vision? So when you're building your actual strategic pillars, you go, my vision is to be the #1, lingerie salesperson in the Northeast. And my plan is to create a boutique service that complements kind of the attitudes of where the world's going and whatever the world's going. And that's where you're going to find your surveys. Okay, that's your vision. What are the pillars that I need to accomplish that? Well, okay, I'm going to need lingerie. I'm going to need a solid team behind me. I'm going to need a new team members. I'm going to need a global team. Okay, well, now we've talked about staff and team. So you may build your pillars off of that. Then from there, we build our SMART goals. And how can we hold ourselves accountable? Basically, that's what your goal is. And you can set your goal. We want 12% increase in lingerie sales by X date. But those have to complement your strategic pillars and eventually your vision. So see how it's kind of cascading up, or if you're starting from the top down, cascading down. And this will all kind of make sense in 1 minute when I go to the next slide. And then finally, the initiatives. What are the buckets of work? And this is where we often get stuck because we want to get to work, right? Look, I just know how to sell lingerie, or I know how to run a rescue squad. Leave me alone. I want to get into the weeds. That's what I'm good at. Okay, well, strategic planning is asking you to go a little bit higher than that, but don't worry, we get to the initiatives. And those are the buckets of work we need to do in each pillar that are held accountable by our goals that help us achieve our vision. So we just cascade it up. Okay, think about that. But I like to put this on a one-page paper, and Erica knows this, and my staff knows this, and my board knows this, and I like to make it really simple. I like to make it simple, and I'll tell you why I like to make it simple. But first, let's go to that one-page strategy, and I'll send this out to everybody after. This is what it looks like. This is what we just went through for the last half an hour. Your mission and vision is up top. Your values, and you can have 5, you can have 4, you can have 3, you can have 6, they're right along underneath that vision. Your strategic pillars are, you have 1 through 6 SMART goals, and then you're going to start to talk about your key initiatives under that. Okay. That allows you to actually talk through each level to your board, to your staff, to your employees, to your investors, whoever it might be. And if you don't think I'm serious, we do one at least at the end of each one of our retreats. And we actually do one, I actually do one every year operationally. So this is our strategic one-page strategy. The mission of the Southwestern Vermont is to promote, lead, advocate, blah, blah, blah. I don't have to read it to you. The vision is to grow business and enhance the Southwestern Vermont economy, influence and foster stable growth to this region's creative ecosystem, assist in building safe and healthy communities, and market Southwestern Vermont to people through the efforts of the regional shires of Vermont brand. Part of the things that help us make our decisions are being inclusive. We really love to be inclusive. We think stronger together. We love to collaborate. We believe in partnerships and that we can't do everything, so we need to collaborate. We have a strong arm of innovation. We move Garlic Fest to Garlic Town. We come up with golf tournaments. We move from lunch and learns to lunch and coffee and learns. We innovate. We have a core DNA that's entrepreneurial spirit around innovation. We have to remain relevant. One of our core values is always saying, how can we be better? How can we communicate with our newest members? How is that new member different than where we were yesterday? I think we're quite resilient. We have made it through the 2008 recession. We have spent all our money. We've made all our money back. We lost healthcare. We made it all back. We lost staff. We got new staff. And we just went through a global pandemic. And I would say we're stronger than we ever have been before for a variety of reasons. I think we are resilient. Resiliency drives our function. And finally, we are accountable. We will pay our debts. We will answer questions when appropriate. We will go to court if we need to prove our accountability. That's what drives this organization. How we're gonna answer that vision of being kind of grow the businesses, be innovative, have a creative ecosystem. Well, I think we're gonna do it, and we think we're gonna do it through organizational commitment and relevancy. We're also gonna need operational excellence when we do that. We almost can't make a mistake. We have to be one of the best chambers in the state of Vermont. We have to have membership service, but we also have to have membership growth. We have to grow as a chamber. We have to use branding and communication, really good branding and communication, as millennials and Gen Z come up through the ranks. And they're not just going to take a fax machine printout. They're going to need color and dynamic presentation. We have to be financially sustainable, but we also have to find financial growth opportunities and what I call our portfolio of big moves. And finally, we have to be innovating all the time. We just cannot, because everybody thinks a chamber is a 100-year-old grandpa's thing, we have to be the complete opposite. We need innovation as one of our strategic pillars. So we drop down, we go, look, some of our goals is to enhance the pathway to leadership, to achieve operational excellence through, to serve our members as partner, advocate, catalyst, and connector in order. So you can kind of see where the goal matches up with the pillar. We have those. They're not as smart as I would like them to be, but we're also trying to get 16 people to agree on a one-page strategy too. So strengthen the brand. Branding and communication, strengthen our ability to communicate, educate, so on and so forth. Financial sustainability and growth, create positive finances through proper budgeting, so on and so forth. And then innovation. Our goal is to embrace cutting edge technology, best practices, and innovation by pursuing an entrepreneurial and collaborative culture in the chamber. One of the biggest ahas for us through this process is innovation does not equal technology. We don't need to be on TikTok yet. Now, I'm not picking on TikTok. I'm just saying, like, sometimes we think innovation is technology and kind of the next shiny thing, where we actually said innovation for a chamber. is around actually running it like a business, because we're a collection of businesses. We have 400 businesses. We should be running this not really almost like a nonprofit. We should be running it like a business. That's innovative in the chamber world. We should be having a collaborative culture in Southwestern Vermont. And all of us that live here know that that is not the first go-to. South Shire's in the South Shire, North Shire's in the North Shire. It's separated by a bridge in Arlington. Okay, well, we don't believe that. We believe in being innovative. We believe in working together. So you can see where innovation can even kind of take on different forms. And then, I won't go through them, but there's our initiatives, and some of them you have seen in action. We're SYP, the Shire's Young Professionals. When we built this, we didn't even, we worked with the young professionals. It was Bennington Young Professionals at the time, but there was a strategic plan to come under or come over the Bennington Young Professionals, help them where they need to, transform them into the Shire's Young Professionals, and make them into their own organizations, and we're well on our way. Operational excellence, all the things we have to go through that should empower our staff. Our membership, what is the retention rate that we're looking for? What is the growth rate we're looking for? And you can see all those go through. So I put that up there just to say, I believe in it. It is good. It is good to share with staff members, but here's kind of why I think it works. One, it creates a snapshot of your plan on one page. It's clear and focused. It cascades the plan down to everyone, shows everyone's part. Erica, here's what I need you to do. Brian, our president, here's what I need you to do. Matt, here's what you need to do. And so with that, that's all I have for you guys for the actual, I want to make sure I turn the recording off here if I ever